A little girl from Kansas opens a farmhouse door, and the world explodes into color. That single moment, the shift from drab sepia into dazzling Technicolor as Dorothy steps into the land of Oz, is one of the most magical in all of cinema. The Wizard of Oz, released by MGM in 1939, is one of the most beloved and most watched films ever made, adored by generations who can recite every line and hum every song. But behind that wonder was one of the most troubled and genuinely dangerous productions in Hollywood history. Toxic makeup, real fire, asbestos snow, 5 directors, and a teenage star pushed to her limits. This is the dark, strange, astonishing story behind the rainbow. 20 facts, counting down. Fact 20. The original Tin Man was nearly killed by his own costume. The Tin Man you see, played by Jack Haley, was not the first choice. The role first went to actor Buddy Ebsen, whose silvery look was created by coating his face in pure aluminium dust. It slowly poisoned him. About 9 days into filming, Ebsen's lungs failed, and he was rushed to hospital, placed in an oxygen tent, scarcely able to breathe. MGM quietly recast the part with Jack Haley, and simply changed the makeup to an aluminium paste painted on, rather than inhaled. Ebsen recovered, but was written out of the film's history for years. If you listen closely, his singing voice can still be heard in some of the Tin Man's group numbers. Fact 19. Dorothy's ruby slippers were originally silver. The ruby slippers are the most famous shoes in movie history, but in the original book, they were not ruby at all. The Wizard of Oz is based on L. Frank Baum's 1900 novel, and in his story, Dorothy wears silver shoes. MGM changed them to a dazzling, sequined ruby red for one simple reason. The film was being shot in vivid 3-strip Technicolor, and bright red slippers popped off the screen far more spectacularly than dull silver ever could. It was a purely commercial decision to show off the new color technology, and it accidentally created one of the most iconic objects in the history of cinema. Fact 18. The whole cast of characters was nearly shuffled around. Poor Buddy Ebsen might have avoided disaster entirely if not for a swap. Ebsen was originally cast as the Scarecrow, and Ray Bolger was cast as the Tin Man. But Bolger desperately wanted the Scarecrow role, which his childhood idol Fred Stone had famously played on stage back in 1902. Bolger campaigned to switch, and the easygoing Ebsen agreed to trade, moving into the Tin Man's metallic costume. It was that costume, with its aluminium makeup, that nearly killed him. Had the two men simply kept their original parts, it might have been Ray Bolger in the oxygen tent instead. Fact 17. The Wicked Witch was badly burned by a fire effect. Margaret Hamilton's exit from Munchkin Land, vanishing in a burst of smoke and flame after snarling, "I'll get you, my pretty," went horribly wrong. On one take, the trapdoor timing failed, and the fire erupted while she was still visible. Her hat and broom caught alight, and Hamilton suffered second-degree burns to her face and third-degree burns to her hand, where her toxic green makeup had to be scraped away before it seeped into the wounds. It took about 6 weeks for her to recover. When she returned, she refused to go anywhere near another fire effect. Fact 16. The witch was originally meant to be glamorous, not green. Margaret Hamilton was not the first Wicked Witch. The role first went to actress Gail Sondergaard, and the studio's early plan was for a sleek, glamorous, evil queen type of villain. But when MGM decided the witch should instead be hideous and green, Sondergaard wanted nothing to do with the ugly makeup and walked away. In stepped Margaret Hamilton, a character actress who reportedly had just 2 days to prepare for what became one of the most iconic villains in film history. Her cackling, green-skinned Wicked Witch of the West terrified generations of children, and it almost belonged to somebody else. Fact 15. The witch's green makeup was toxic and stained her skin for weeks. That vivid green face came at a real cost. The Wicked Witch's makeup was made with a copper-based compound that was genuinely toxic, and Margaret Hamilton had to be careful not to let any of it near her mouth, meaning she could barely eat while in costume, mostly taking liquids through a straw. The copper stained her skin so deeply that a green tinge reportedly lingered on her face for weeks after filming ended. So the eerie green glow that makes the Wicked Witch so memorable was in reality a mild case of ongoing copper poisoning that Hamilton simply endured take after take. Fact 14. The wizard actor secretly plays 5 different characters. Watch closely, and you'll spot the same face all over Oz. Frank Morgan, who plays the wizard, actually appears as 5 separate characters in the film. He is Professor Marvel, the traveling fortune teller Dorothy meets back in Kansas, the doorman at the gates of the Emerald City, the cabbie driving the horse of a different color, the wizard's fierce palace guard, and of course, the wizard himself. Morgan reportedly campaigned hard to land the wizard role. Once he had it, the filmmakers used him to fill half the Emerald City. One busy actor quietly playing nearly every authority figure Dorothy meets on her journey. Fact 13. The snow that wakes Dorothy from the poppies is pure asbestos. In the famous scene where Dorothy and her friends collapse in the Wicked Witch's deadly poppy field, they are woken by a gentle, magical snowfall. That snow was made of pure asbestos. In the 1930s, asbestos was cheap, fluffy, fire-resistant, and widely used in Hollywood as fake snow, long before anyone understood how dangerous it was to breathe. So Judy Garland and her co-stars lay in a field being sprinkled with one of the most hazardous materials known today. It's one of several ways the making of this cheerful children's classic was quietly poisoning the very people bringing its magic to life. Fact 12. The leap into color uses a hidden body double. The film's most magical moment is the transition from Kansas to Oz, from a dull sepia farmhouse into a world of glorious Technicolor as Dorothy opens the door. But there's a clever trick in it. The inside of the farmhouse was actually painted sepia, and the Dorothy who walks to the door and opens it, seen from behind, is a body double wearing a matching sepia-toned dress. Only once the door is open and the camera moves through into the Technicolor world does Judy Garland herself step into frame in full color. It's a seamless piece of movie magic, hiding one of the great transitions in film. Fact 11. Judy Garland was 16 and pushed to her limits by the studio. Behind Dorothy's wide-eyed innocence was a teenager under enormous pressure. Judy Garland was just 16 when she made the film, and MGM controlled her relentlessly. The studio kept her on a strict regime to stay slim for the part, and by many accounts, supplied her with stimulants to keep her working through grueling days and pills to suppress her appetite. It was the beginning of a lifelong struggle that would shadow the rest of her career. The joyful girl skipping down the yellow brick road was, in reality, a child being worn down by a studio system that too often treated her as a product. Fact 10. The film's greatest song was almost cut entirely. Over the Rainbow is now considered one of the greatest songs in movie history. and it was nearly thrown out of the film. Studio executives felt the ballad slowed down the black and white Kansas opening and worried audiences wouldn't want to watch a big MGM star singing in a dreary farmyard. The song was reportedly cut and restored more than once during editing. Thankfully, the filmmakers fought to keep it. Written by composer Harold Arlen and lyricist Yip Harburg, Over the Rainbow went on to win the Academy Award for Best Original Song and became forever tied to Judy Garland. The most beloved moment in the film almost never made it to screen. Fact 9. The film went through 5 different directors. For a film that feels so seamless, The Wizard of Oz had a chaotic command structure. As many as 5 directors had a hand in it. Richard Thorpe shot early footage before being fired. George Cukor briefly stepped in as an advisor and made a crucial call, telling Judy Garland to drop the heavy makeup and blonde wig and simply be herself. Victor Fleming then took over as the main director and shaped most of the film before he abruptly left to rescue another troubled MGM production. That production was Gone with the Wind. King Vidor finished up, directing the sepia Kansas scenes, including Over the Rainbow. Fact 8. The Cowardly Lion's costume was made from real lions. Bert Lahr's Cowardly Lion is one of the film's most huggable characters, but his costume was a genuine ordeal. It was made from real lion skins and fur, and it weighed something in the region of 90 pounds. Under the blazing Technicolor lights, which were so hot they could push the set temperature well past 100 degrees, Lahr sweated so heavily inside the heavy pelt that the costume had to be repeatedly dried out between takes. So the actor bringing all that warmth and comedy to the Cowardly Lion spent months roasting inside an enormously heavy suit made from actual lions, quietly suffering for every laugh. Fact 7. Toto earned more per week than the Munchkin actors. Dorothy's little dog, Toto, was played by a female Cairn Terrier named Terry, trained by Carl Spitz, and she was handsomely paid. Terry reportedly earned around $125 a week, which was more than many of the human actors playing the Munchkins were paid for the same work. Terry did suffer for her fame, though. During filming, one of the Wicked Witch's guards accidentally stepped on her and broke her foot, forcing her to be temporarily replaced by a stand-in dog while she recovered. After the film, the little terrier was so identified with the part that her owner eventually renamed her Toto for good. Fact 6. A stunt double was badly hurt in a broomstick explosion. Margaret Hamilton's burns were not the only injury a Wicked Witch's magic caused. For the dangerous flying and skywriting sequences, Hamilton was doubled by a stunt woman named Betty Danko. In one scene, Danko sat on the witch's broomstick, which was rigged with a pipe to produce its trademark smoke. The pipe exploded. Danko was thrown from the broom and suffered severe burns and permanent scarring to her legs, spending weeks in hospital. So both the Wicked Witch and her stunt double were seriously hurt by the film's fire and smoke effects. The price of putting real, practical movie magic on screen in an age before digital trickery. Fact 5. That hanged Munchkin you've heard about isn't real. One of the most persistent rumors about the film claims that, in the background of one forest scene, you can see a Munchkin actor who has hanged himself. It's a creepy legend that has spread for decades, and it's completely false. The dark, moving shape in the background is not a body at all. It's a large, exotic bird, one of several, including an emu and peacocks, that the studio had borrowed to make the Oz forest feel more alive. In old, low-quality prints, The bird shape looks vaguely human, and a grim myth was born. Watch a clean, restored version, and the hanging figure is clearly just a bird stretching its wings. Fact 4. It lost Best Picture to a film by its own director. The Wizard of Oz was nominated for 5 Academy Awards, including Best Picture. It lost that top prize to Gone with the Wind, and there's a delicious irony in that. Gone with the Wind was largely directed by Victor Fleming, the very same man who had directed most of The Wizard of Oz before leaving to take it over. So in effect, Fleming beat himself. 1939 is often called the greatest year in Hollywood history, packed with classics, and Oz simply ran into an unstoppable rival. It did win 2 Oscars, for Best Original Score and for the song Over the Rainbow, plus a special juvenile award for Judy Garland. Fact 3. Legend says the wizard's coat once belonged to the author. Here's a famous piece of movie folklore. The shabby, gone-to-seed coat worn by Frank Morgan as Professor Marvel was, the story goes, picked at random from a rack of second-hand coats, and someone later found a label inside revealing it had once belonged to L. Frank Baum himself, the author of the original book. It's a wonderful tale of cosmic coincidence, and it's been repeated for decades, but it's almost certainly not true. Baum's own family has denied ever seeing the coat or hearing the story, and Margaret Hamilton believed it was simply a piece of publicity invented by the studio. A lovely legend, but probably just a legend. Fact 2. A pair of the ruby slippers was stolen and hunted by the FBI. Only a few pairs of the original ruby slippers still exist, and they are worth a fortune. In 2005, 1 pair was brazenly stolen from the Judy Garland Museum in Grand Rapids, Minnesota, the town where Garland was born. The slippers vanished, and for years the case went cold. Then in 2018, the FBI finally recovered them in a sting operation, though it took several more years for the culprits to be brought to justice. Today, surviving pairs of the ruby slippers are among the most valuable movie props on Earth, with 1 pair selling at auction for tens of millions of dollars. A record for a piece of movie memorabilia. Fact 1. The most watched film in history was originally a flop. Here's the twist that ties it all together. For all its fame today, The Wizard of Oz was not a hit when it opened in 1939. It was hugely expensive to make, and despite strong reviews and its Oscars, it barely broke even and didn't turn a real profit until a re-release years later. What made it immortal was television. Starting in the 1950s, the film began airing on American TV as an annual event, watched by whole families together, year after year, generation after generation. Through those broadcasts, this once underperforming picture became arguably the most seen film in human history. Proof that sometimes it takes the world a little while to find its way home. And that's 20 facts about The Wizard of Oz, a dangerous, chaotic, near-disastrous production that somehow became the most beloved film ever made. If you enjoyed this journey down the yellow brick road, subscribe for a brand new countdown every week and tell us which classic we should visit next. There's no place like home.